Warning, spoilers ahead. Hey wisecrack, Jared here, and today we're discussing the show that made us never want to attend a wedding again, HBO's fantasy epic, Game of Thrones. In a 2008 article in New York Magazine, showrunner David Benioff described Game of Thrones as the Sopranos in Middle-earth. The Middle-earth comparison makes sense given the dragons, magic, fantasy lore, and an author with the middle initials RR, but what's the connection with the Sopranos? A quick stop on the world's most reliable reference reveals that the relation between the two is an intrigue-filled plot and dark tone. That seems a little nebulous. I mean, Teen Wolf and Pretty Little Liars have intrigue-filled plots and dark tones. It just doesn't seem unique to Game of Thrones. With a closer look, there does seem to be something that brings these two television powerhouses together, and it may not be what you think. The answer? The setting. They do have similar leisure spots after all. In all seriousness, they're similar because they both take place during an interregnum, or a period of time when leadership is either unclear or in flux. In the first season of Game of Thrones, King Robert Baratheon dies, leaving various factions vying for their claim to be his successor. Some have even likened this to the Great Interregnum, a nearly 20-year period in which the Holy Roman Empire had no official ruler. Like the show, this era was characterized by strategic weddings, betrayals, and the significant impact of religious groups on the power struggle. Likewise, in the first season of The Sopranos, Jackie Aprile, the head of the New Jersey mob, dies of cancer, leaving a lapse of leadership with no clear indication of who should take the reign.
Nobody knows who's running things anymore.
Should it be Tony, Jr., Jackie's brother Richie? What about Jackie Jr.? In both shows, this issue of succession remains problematic for much of the series. According to philosopher William Spanos, an interregnum can also be characterized by an unknown future, or a cataclysmic change in reality. Think the fall of Rome, or the dawning of the age of Aquarius.
Lately, I'm getting the feeling that I came in at the end. The best is over.
Our purpose died with the Mad King.
In Game of Thrones, the White Walkers are coming, and humanity faces death by snow zombie. In The Sopranos, Tony's panic attacks signal realization that his rise to power comes right as mob life is dying, largely due to the RICO statutes and the FBI.
But you know, the heyday, the golden age, or whatever of the mob, that's gone, and that's never coming back.
His personality, the Gary Cooper type, the strong, silent guy who took care of his own problems and didn't act like a victim, is also slowly becoming extinct.
Let me tell you something. Nowadays, everybody's got to go to shrinks and counselors and go on Sally Jesse Raphael and talk about their problems. Whatever happened to Gary Cooper, the strong, silent type?
If you caught the Hard Home episode of Game of Thrones, you might have come to the realization that humanity is basically fucked. Likewise, with the ever-expanding power of the FBI to prosecute organized crime, Tony and his boys are, well, also fucked.
Oh, the RICO statutes?
Oh, of course, right.
You read the papers? The government's using electronic surveillance and various legal strategies to squeeze my business?
In precarious times like these, people tend to either reaffirm their faith in a moral code or abandon it entirely. The rules of omerta, or the code of honor and silence that's meant to preserve the lifestyle of organized crime, are being broken left and right.
The code of silence, or the omerta, or whatever you want to call it, just went by the boards.
With the new severe penal sentence for drug trafficking, even the most loyal wise guys are becoming FBI informants, because, well, they don't serve Big Ziti in a federal penitentiary. Tony, too, disregards the code when he talks to a psychologist, let alone a woman, and later he beats Ralph despite the fact he's a made man.
I'm a made guy!
In Game of Thrones, the systems of order that preserve humanity are also being broken. The viewers are reminded that there must always be a Stark in Winterfell, but that goes to shit, and nobody quite knows what the consequences will be. The Night's Watch is set up with support from the entire realm to preserve humanity, but let's face it, it's falling apart. Only 3 of the 19 castles are functioning, the Children of the Forest no longer give 100 obsidian daggers every year like they used to, and most of the ranks of the Guard are made up of bastards, thieves, and rapists. While this comparison between 2 stellar TV shows might seem pretty innocuous, it actually gets real pretty quickly. To some, Game of Thrones isn't just a fantasy epic with a ludicrous body count. It's an indication that our lives are about to get fucked. A quick Google search reveals that one of the dominant interpretations of the Game of Thrones series is that the show is really about global warming. The theory goes something like this. Basically, we're on the precipice of an extinction-level event. What with rising sea levels, storms, massive displacements of population and refugee crises, increase of diseases and superstorms, ocean acidification, biodiversity loss, and all that fun stuff. Yet everyone is fixated on other things like underinflated footballs, Tupac holograms, and the ever-important social impact of topless celebrity selfies. Similarly, the White Walkers are descending from the land of always winter to kill everyone, but the people of Westeros are too busy worrying about their own shit, like the war for the Iron Throne, chasing down Robert's bastards to see the color of their hair, trekking across the globe to see if dragons are back, giving their cat whimsical names, and lining the streets for a chance to see Queen Cersei's boobs. In The Sopranos, it's gumads, people coming in and out of jail, something about horses, and the New York versus New Jersey feud, when they should have been worrying about other things.
Fucking Christ.
Not to mention that some people like to have their head in the sand when confronted with the impending apocalypse.
I don't believe that giants and ghouls and White Walkers are lurking beyond the wall.
In Roy Scranton's book, Learning to Die in the Anthropocene, he argues that we live in a new era characterized by man-made climate change. If the dinosaurs lived in the Triassic, the Jurassic, and the Cretaceous, we live in the Anthropocene, an age characterized by the advent of the human species as a geological force. Essentially, we've turned a corner and we're already seeing the catastrophic consequences of fossil fuel addiction. Instead of waiting for the renewable revolution, the banks, or the governments of the world to fix the problem, we need to understand that we're all already dead. The only thing we can do, according to Scranton, learn how to die. Man, this video took a depressing turn. So what does that even mean, learning how to die? It means drastically altering our way of life, understanding that our current life choices aren't working, and above all, accepting that there's no going back. Our way of life is, like so many whites, already dead. Indeed, the key to surviving in Westeros seems to be the ability to adapt, or to, quote, learn how to die.
There's no justice in the world, not unless we make it.
Characters who adapt under reality-shattering circumstances tend to live. Well, longer at least. Jaime Lannister, the legendary swordsman, dies in a metaphorical sense when his sword hand is taken, but he learns to adapt and perseveres. Arya does all sorts of adapting in the name of survival. She works for one of the men responsible for killing her father, she disguises herself as a boy, and she even travels with the Hound even though she wants to exact revenge against him. Not to mention when she goes to Braavos and is instructed by the Faceless Men that she must set aside her identity completely and become no one. Bran dies when he loses function in his legs, but this event causes him to focus on his powers and begin his true journey. Hodor. Whereas characters who can't change simply die, like for real die.
You think my life is some precious thing to me, that I would trade my honor for a few more years of woe?
Ned Stark is so rigid in honoring the line of legitimate succession that he fails to prevent the Lannister takeover. And he, Stannis refused to stray the course from Melisandre's plan, causing his army to desert and be overtaken by the Boltons. And Joffrey just couldn't stop being a dick, accept responsibility, and effectively rule. It can be argued that Phil Leotardo's tragic flaw was that he didn't know how to die. His need to keep it old school, his homophobia and fear of anything that emasculates the macho mob image, or him getting all pissed off because Johnny Sack cried one time, all show his inability to adapt to a world where someone like Gary Cooper no longer serves a purpose.
To cry like a woman? That's a fucking disgrace.
He doesn't understand that his way of life is dying, and he, Or as Jaqen H'ghar states,
Vala Morgulis.
All men must die. Learning to die means living for others, like the Night's Watch, giving up selfish desires for the greater good. This is echoed by the sister phrase to Valar Morgulis. All men must serve. And perhaps this is why all men dying and all men serving are two sides of the same coin. Knowing that all men must die comes with the responsibility of serving your part, of making your life count. Perhaps it's up to the Tyrions, Samwell Tarleys, and Maesters of the world to reinvigorate a love of literature and philosophy necessary to create a new code, a new way of living before it's too late. Or maybe it was always up to Jon Snow and they're all fucked. Or not. And if you need a nice distraction from the impending apocalypse, might we suggest building a beautiful website with Squarespace. Squarespace has made it easy for anyone to make a beautiful website, and they're giving you 10% off your first order when you use the offer code wisecrack. With gorgeous templates and easy-to-use tools, they've made it simple to create the website you want. Sign up today and you'll get a free 14-day trial and you can see for yourself. Make sure to use the offer code wisecrack to get 10% off your order. And we've got more great videos on the way, so rise up and claim the Iron Throne by clicking here. You'll be taken to our channel page where you can check out our other videos and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. I mean, it wouldn't be a bad idea. As always, thanks for watching. Peace.